Game one of the things I did with some of the spare time that I did have was watch the last time the Knicks and Spurs played each other, which was March 1st of this year, a few months ago. I will say disclaimer: I am one of those analysts and one of those people. I use those as things of reference, right? Seeing different schematic things, but I don't hold too much judgment in those regular season games. I know a lot of people always run to, oh man, they were 3-1 in the regular season, or this team, they were undefeated against this team. Or none of that really matters in the playoffs. As we've seen, the Knicks have reached a whole new gear. They've played in different ways that we haven't even seen. Guys are stepping up, playing out of their mind. Same thing with the Spurs, right? It's hard to judge the Spurs in March versus the Spurs that we're getting right now in June. But some of the things that did stand out to me that I'm very curious to see if they will follow into game one. One of the biggest things that stood out was the traditional scheme that a lot of people have thrown at the Knicks. It's just that it's a little different because the Spurs have an all-time defender, and I'm already putting all-time out there with Vic. They took the strategy of putting Vic on Josh Hart with the idea that he's our non-shooter in the starting lineup, and you would allow Vic to be able to roam and play freely, which we've seen throughout the playoffs in certain instances. We know how scary that can be, and we've seen it already. One of the key things to this, though, is we've seen Josh Hart have some stellar offensive performances, and he shot the ball really, really well throughout the course of the regular season and the previous series. He has had his struggles here and there in certain series and certain games, but for the most part, Josh Hart has been really, really good offensively. So I'm curious to see if they'll take that same approach, right, of putting Wemby on Josh Hart and allowing him to try to roam. You also had the matchups of De'Aaron Fox guarding Jalen Brunson. Nowhere in my mind do I feel like that's going to happen, but it has to happen if Wemby is going to be on Josh Hart, because where they use Castle is on Karl Anthony Towns, because Castle is a stronger guard. He has a stronger physique. He's a guy that doesn't mind boxing out and being in the trenches or anything like that. If you put Wemby on Josh Hart, there's really nobody else in their starting lineup that can probably handle that assignment outside of Castle. But I say that because in my mind, based off what he just did in that series against OKC with Shea, it feels like you might want Castle on Brunson. That's just what it feels like, right? It feels like Brunson is a guy that you would want to slow down a ton, and you would want Castle to be able to take on that assignment, guarding him up full court, being physical, using his size to his advantage, and doing it that way. The other thing for me is on the other side of the basketball where we put Cat on Wemby. And the reason this is a big deal and a topic is because though we've seen a guy like Ihart and some of the possessions Jay Will had last series, they did a really good job. Karl Anthony Towns has constantly been in foul trouble. Not to mention Mitchell Robinson and his broken pinky. They're saying he's going to be able to play. He's going to play through it. I think it's one thing to say he's going to play through it. It's one thing to say that we should expect the same Mitchell Robinson that we've been getting, for the last, I don't know how many years in the playoffs, being that presence on the offensive glass, being that versatile defender and that size and that frame, being able to move his feet, right? Length, lateral quickness. Hopefully he's able to go. But there's a lot right now weighing on the Knicks on how we're going to guard and attack the monster of Wembanyama on the offensive side of the basketball. And it's also the thing for me of trying to figure out, do we do the same process we had early in the series against the Atlanta Hawks? I mean, early in the playoffs against the Atlanta Hawks, where we started to see Cat be a hub again, right? And everybody could play off of him, and he was looking like Catrick Johnson. You like that one, Catrick Johnson? Hey, new nickname alert, right? He was able to wheel and deal and pass and facilitate, and he had fun doing it. It looked like it motivated him, and we started to see him be a little bit more locked in defensively, right? Then we seen in the last series against the Cavs. The Cavs came out and they were prepared for that. Game one, their biggest lead of that series and the best performance that they had for the first four quarters, the first 41 minutes of that game, the Cavaliers controlled. it was because I feel like number one, the Knicks had such a long break and they were a bit rusty. Obviously, OG was like the first game since his hamstring injury. He had to get reworked into the groove of everything. But they were also very well prepared for us to try to play off of Cat. They took away a lot of those back doors. They weren't letting the slips be open. They were guarding the handoff with Brunson really well. And then we started to get back into the old New York Knicks basketball, where it's like, all right, y'all move out the way. Let Brunson get his desirable matchup, which was James Harden, and you do what you do. So I'm interested to know if the Knicks are going to revert to that way where we're still letting Brunson rock out, or are we going to be able to use Cat as that offensive hub? And I'm going to put out a hot take out here. And maybe it's not a hot take, but I feel like there's a world where obviously Jalen Brunson is the best player on the Knicks. Obviously, he takes the big shots. Obviously, he's the guy that has those runs. To me, there's a world where Karl Anthony Towns could really dominate in this series and make the finals MVP if the Knicks were to be favorable in this series. He can make it a conversation. If the Spurs have the audacity to not guard Cat with Wemby, Cat can have his way in so many different ways. He can beat them as a passer. He can beat them as a scorer. He can beat them as a shooter. And then the other thing that I think is the most important part of this, I don't think the Spurs should be able to handle the Knicks when Wemby isn't on the floor. And that's one of the things that stood out to me again in that March 1st game, though it doesn't mean all. It's one singular game all the way in March in the regular season. But when Wemby came out of the game, almost very similar to the OKC series, the Knicks were able to really do what they want. Nobody really feared Cornette. Who do you put him on? If you have a lineup out there where Cat is the center, it's a little bit easier when Mitchell Robinson is out there as a non-shooting threat. But the Knicks have been shooting the basketball at a crazy clip right now in these playoffs. And having those lanes be open because you're respecting the shooting, the shot making of a Landry Shaman, of a Deuce McBride, of a Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby. You know, hell, like I said earlier, Josh Hart won us a game in the last series. I think Cat could be a force on the glass, could get his assists that he's been getting, and he can have a few games where he is the leading scorer and he's leading the charge. It just depends on the type of energy and mentality he comes out there with. But I would say I think Cat could be a sleeper for the Finals MVP. It's hard to see it because when you visualize the Knicks potentially winning, it feels like it'll be on the backs of Jalen Brunson having some magnificent, incredible performances. But based off what I just seen with against OKC, I wouldn't be surprised if they found a way to kind of limit Jalen Brunson a little bit, make it really tough for him. I think he'll still be able to produce and add some production, but it may get a little ugly. There may be a couple of ugly games for Jalen Brunson in this series because of the Castles, the Vassels, the team defense, and the Spurs guards and their perimeter defenders. They go out there and they play so confidently and freely defensively up top on the perimeter because they know they have a 7'5" guy behind them. And I think that slows the things a bit down. And I want to see the Knicks not allow that to intimidate them, right? I think Josh Hart, like he did in that last game that I watched against them, he should go at Wemby. He did that a few times that he had presentable, and I thought he did a really good job of finding his balance. There was plays at times where Josh Hart attacked the paint and attacked Wemby with no fear. But there was also a couple times where Josh Hart thought about going coast to coast in a Josh Hart signature way. He slowed it down and was able to find a trailing transition shooter because the Spurs are on scramble defense. It's going to be a matchup fest. It's going to be a chess match. You know, I think this could look just like the Thunder series, and we see the Knicks have a strong win here, but then the Spurs will probably answer with a strong win for themselves. And then Mike Brown does something else, and the Knicks take control. It could just be back and forth, just like a boxing match. Just like a boxing match. There will be some youthful mistakes and some shot making or some shot attempts from the Spurs that will feel rushed and early because they look to want to play fast. At least that what we saw against the OKC Thunder. And I just think if the Knicks are able to take advantage of that and we can get the same production from our bench, right? If Mitchell Robinson can still be impactful on the offensive glass and we can control the glass, I think we give ourselves a really big advantage. And I'm looking to see Deuce McBride and Landry Shamet have the shot making that they have. I do think it's going to be a hell of a series. I'm obviously rooting for my Knicks. I'm being biased here when it comes to my prediction. But outside of who I'm picking, I'm predicting that this is going to go to length. I think we're setting ourselves up for another 6 to 7 games, and we'll end the season on a big hoorah shebang.
Hit subscribe for more news, highlights, and analysis from the NBA on NBC.